All right, hello. We're getting into module 3, which is digitizing a doodle. I took a photo, so here is my Google Drive with all the module folders. I've taken a picture of my doodle just with my iPhone, and I airdropped it to my Mac and then uploaded it here, so now I'm on my PC. But let me download it really quick. Essentially, you can email it to yourself, you can airdrop it to yourself, whatever works for you. The photo doesn't have to be anything fancy. You'll see mine, because we're going to be making doodles out of this anyway. So, anyway, let me, okay, Digi Doodle, and I think these are 8.5 by 11. Yes, by 11, and we need 8 of them. So I'm going to show you a trick here. Instead of making copies in the artboard panel, what we can do is just change this number to 8. And then we're going to go into more settings and do a little bit of stuff. And I'm going to get rid of my webcam too, so you can see the full screen. But anyway, we are working in CMYK color mode. Yeah, I know, I'll fix it. We are using a 300 ppi, and then clicking on more settings. So you'll see that basically that the sort of dumbed down version of the presets are ported over here, so we can get even more in depth with this file creation. And what I like to do is pay attention to the way the artboards are going to be generated in your workspace. So I'm going grid by row, the first one, and I'm going to do 4 columns. So that means we're going to have 4 across twice. So 2 by 4, total of 8. Let me show you. Actually, we'll do it right. I don't want to show you what it would look like if it was wrong. But you should have 4 columns, 8 artboards total. Boom. Okay. So we have where we are going to be doing our doodling. Already set up. We can take, and once we're done, we take a nice, beautiful screenshot here. Everything is already aligned and evenly spaced. Like it's great. I need to find my color mode. Gosh, where are the color settings? Oops. We're in CMYK. Oh, document. Yeah, we're in CMYK. Okay. Alright, we're good. I just got that like weird warning at the beginning, so let me get rid of my webcam. Goodbye. And let's start with placing our file. So go to File, Place. Boom, boom, boom. And then actually, let me press escape. File, place, selecting that. And it's gonna ask me if I wanna link it. You don't need to select this because we're gonna be doing some editing to it. But you should know the difference between a linked image and an embedded image. If I don't have it linked, it will be embedded. Is there a place embedded? Oh, I think that was an older version. Anyway, let me grab my image, making sure linked is off because it doesn't really matter. It's gonna turn off anyway. So I'm gonna place it. Boom. Let's scale her down. Okay. So the reason it doesn't matter is because I am going to, well, as you can see, I didn't draw these out to fit on the artboards, but I want each of these doodles to live on an artboard. So for example, we'll have the cat here, the jar here, the little swirly fluff here, and so on. That way I can do, you know, my 8 doodles. But we're gonna make a template layer and end up just making copies of this. So let me double click this layer. I'm just gonna rename it template, and I'm gonna check template, and I'm going to dim images to 50%. That's fine. You could go a little lower, but you just need to make sure you can see it. Let's go okay. Go back, selection tool. Oops, sorry. It locked automatically, so I have to unlock it. Selection tool, and I'm going to hold that Option or Alt and make a copy. So I'm going to have one there, and one there. So you can do the math on how to do the bottom 4. So starting with the first one, I'm going to do cat. I'm just going to scale it. I'm holding shift while I'm scaling. And it's okay if we're overlapping. That's about good. And what I'm going to do is right click it and do crop image. You can also do object crop image. So there's like, I was just thinking about this today, like there's multiple ways you can do the same thing in a lot of the Adobe programs. So it's just like really dependent on your workflow, like how you like. Do you like using the hotkeys? Do you like using the drop-down menu, and so on? But either way, I am cropping this, all this other stuff out, and just leaving the cat there. I'm going to press return or enter, and name it cat, so I know which one I'm clicking on. Cool. So that guy is done. I can lock it. And what's really nice about the template layers, let's move these out of the way for now. What's nice about the template layers is they will never show up in your finalized work. So if I, you know, later on go to print this or, you know, export the graphic, these will not show up. It's just exactly what it sounds like. It's a template layer. It's a reference for your doodle. So I'm going to crop this guy out. Boom. Let's do the next. You know what? Just for the sake of time, I'm just going to do one more. holding shift while I scale. That looks good. Crop. All right, come on. Boom. Okay, so let's call this one blade. Let's call this one jar. And just locking everything. So my template layer is set up. I'm ready to go. I'm going to start by creating a new layer. I'm going to call this cat. Doodle. And then we're going to make one, you're going to make one for each of your doodles. So just stay organized, name them, just it's easier that way, make it easier for yourself. Okay, so I think module 1, we touched on the pen tool, and the curvature tool, but we're gonna go into a lot more detail here. So let me zoom in. Awesome. So the pen tool is great because we can create something called a path, and the path is made up of, so let me just demonstrate. So every time I click, I'm creating an anchor point, and this anchors the path on, in like an XY sort of coordinate, relative to each other. So if I just click, you can see that I'm creating a polygon here. Let's get rid of this fill and give it a stroke weight so you can see that. And you see they're all rectilinear, but if I click, and then let's put down our next point, and then drag my mouse out. I'm not releasing the button or the left mouse button right now. I'm just dragging. I can create nice soft curves instead of these, jagged edges, which totally up to your doodle. What does your doodle look like? Hopefully it has some rounded edges so you can play around with both. Please have rounded edges. But we also can adjust these anchor points when they're placed. Once they're placed, they're not permanent. Everything is editable. I can use the direct selection tool. I'll show you a couple different ways. But first, I really like using the direct selection tool because I can just make sure I click on that path and then move these anchor points around. And you'll see some of so these are the hard rectilinear corners. There's no curvature to them, so they don't have these handles here that adjust their how one point curves into the next. So I can grab this anchor point, move it around, whatever, but maybe I want to make the curve come out one way. Maybe it's more, I don't know, it looks like dinosaur shape to me, chicken shape. It looks like a reptile, but either way, I can soften, or I can make my shape more lumpy. The shorter your Bezier handles, that's what they're called, Bezier handles, the more sort of like lumpiness you'll get. But the longer they are, the sort of like smoother transition they lean into each other. So that's editing with the direct selection tool. We can also open up the pen tool drop-down menu. We have add anchor point, where I can add another anchor point. I gotcha. I can move that around. Wait. So direct selection tool is hotkey A. I can also delete anchor points. Let's get rid of that one. And it will remain that sort of closed path. So closed path, meaning it has all the anchor points connect in a continuous loop. An open path, let's show you an open path. And you see it wants, the tail end wants to connect somewhere, but I'm not going to let it. I'm just going to press escape. This is an open path. So let me give this a fill. Let me give this guy a fill. And you see, you know, this one is a complete solid shape. This one, not so much. It's a little more unpredictable with like where the color is going to be because we have an irregular shape. But it's open because these anchor points do not connect. So if I was going to connect, maybe I would just go boom, boom. All right, see, we have a solid shape with an outline, you know, the stroke. And where was I going with this? But either way, the last thing I want to show you is the anchor point tool, and this is great because we can turn some of those hard edges. We can like directly adjust some of those harder edges or corners and give them that soft flowy feel. I don't know. And then we can move multiple anchor points at once just by clicking somewhere random, like in between anchor points. And I think that's it. That's the kind of basic overview of the pen tool and its family. But I also want to talk about the curvature tool, which is like the pen tool's cousin, and it's or sibling, I guess. Where the pen tool, you know, without doing much work, it creates these hard rectilinear shapes. The curvature tool does the opposite. So I'm not doing any sort of clicking and dragging. It will auto curve for me. And what I really like I prefer the curvature tool a lot of times when I'm doing work because it allows me to directly edit. I can also double click these anchor points to make hard edges if I need hard edges in my shape. But we can also go in with the direct selection tool and adjust those Bezier curves. So whichever you are more comfortable using, I would say do half of them in the curvature, half in the pen tool, because you're still, once you place your paths, you're still gonna have to do a little bit of editing anyway. So let's get started. I think that's kind of it before we get into swatches, which we'll get into after this is created. And I want to talk a little bit about different kind of strokes and like interesting things you can do to the sort of outline of your objects. So starting with this cat, this is going to be an open path. I did this in one sort of like not lifting my marker off the paper. So started here, ended here. It doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to start here because it's easy. And we're just going to drop an anchor point. Oops. I'm going to get rid of the fill too so I can see. drop an anchor point. And my goal in this is to use as little anchor points as possible. The more anchor points, and this is all just like something you have to get used to and, you know, decide like what works best for your artwork too. But the more points you have, the more, I just think it's more work to clean up. It's easier to add more points than it is to take away. But there is no hard rule of how many anchor points you need to have on your doodle. So I'm just following the shape of my cat, clicking and sort of dragging to match up that line as close as possible to my doodle line. You see there's a boo-boo there I have to adjust, and that's fine. And you know, he's gonna be a little lumpy, but I have a secret tool we can use. So let's get him wrapped up. And it does take like just a little bit of practice. It's when I was first learning Illustrator, I found this to be the most annoying thing to do, and I would instead lean towards the brush tool. But if you get really good at this, you'll get really fast, probably faster than I am. And I'm just going to press escape so we don't have a closed path. And let me just turn off my template so I can see this. It's like he's a little lumpy. Oh, and I had some things I wanted to edit. So let's go in. I'm just going to use the anchor point tool. I'm going to zoom in. A for direct selection tool. See how there's like, I don't know if you can see how the paths is coming down, 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 anchor point, and then loops around. That's why we're getting this like sharp edge here. So I just need to adjust my Bezier handles so they fit a little bit better. So we have it, they all flow in the same direction. There's no like weird loopies causing strange sort of, you know, those strange edges. So just moving a couple things around to match. Oop. Move him up there. All right. Pretty close. Your doodle does not need to be 100%. It just needs to be very close. I mean, your doodle is more of an inspiration, right? Like, we're creating new work from a sketch, so I wouldn't overthink it too much. So I'm going to turn off template so you can see the lumpiness. I could go in and really like refine some of these edges, but I have a really cool tool for you guys to use underneath the rectangle tool, especially if you guys are in the Essentials Classic workspace, which you should be in. Under rectangle tool, open up this menu and we get smooth tool. So we can't use smooth tool without selecting that path, but let's grab that smooth tool now that he's selected, and it'll auto smooth. Woo! So very abstract version. We can auto smooth this with the slider. kind of like that. But we can also, so you see my cursor here, I can also kind of drag these to adjust, like drag it along the anchor points to kind of influence where it should go. I didn't really like that one, but this will sometimes will add anchor points, delete anchor points. Its job is just to give you a sort of like generated-esque smoothing of your path. So, all right, let's zoom out. And I think I'm happy with this. Let's center him. So let's talk about what we can do to make a line drawing interesting. I have no fill on this. If I wanted to put a fill, it would look like that. I don't like that, and so we're gonna leave that blank. Obviously we can thicken or thin the stroke weight. We can change the color of the stroke itself. I'm gonna leave it black for right now. I'm gonna zoom back in. But if we go to Window, Stroke, I'm just gonna move this right there. Open up the hamburger, show options to show everything. And here I can do some like really fun things. Super fun stuff. So we can obviously adjust the stroke weight here, but we can see how his tail ends in this sort of square shape. We could give him a rounded edge, so it looks a little bit more like a hand drawing, just like a little bit. We could extend that line to come off that path just a bit, or maybe the line ends where the path ends, or the stroke ends where the path ends. I love the rounded edge. We can also, and I need to do a new shape just to show you this. We can also adjust the corners. So hard corners, soft corners, rounded corners. We also have 45 corners. So different style choices. This guy is he's all smoothed out. I don't think there's a hard edge on him. And another thing we can do is align the stroke to that path we created, right? So you see the stroke is coming out. As I thicken it, especially, you can see it's coming out evenly on both left and right of the path, or top and bottom, however you're looking at it. I could change that stroke weight to generate above it or below it. So that completely changes things, right? See, he gets like kind of more pointy, and he gets kind of round, like ballooned. I'm gonna leave that center. I think that's totally fine. And I'm gonna bring my stroke weight down to 4, just to demonstrate the next part, which is the dashed line. So obviously, dashed line means we are creating a dashed line that follows the path we just created. We can determine what is the length of that dash, right? Is it 1 point, which you can hardly see because my stroke weight is too big. Let's try 20. And then maybe we'll give it a gap of, let's do 5 points. sometimes, like, just be mindful, the weight will influence if you can see this or not. So let's change this to 3. Because my stroke weight is larger than the gap, we're not really seeing a gap here. We are seeing like a textury, like, you know, lumpiness to the line itself, to the stroke itself. And that could be interesting. But let's change this to 8, and we'll change this to 10. Let's change this to 10. Maybe smaller. Oh, I'm not even selected. My bad. There we go. All right. So kind of rule of thumb that I follow is these should be the dash line values should be larger than your stroke weight if you want to see the gaps. But as you see, like, I'm making the stroke weight thicker. I'm getting this like textured look to it, to the surface. Whoa. All right, take that off. I mean, I might come back to that, but I'm taking it off for the demo. We can also, if this is in open path, we can add arrows, which is super lovely if you're doing some sort of like making, if you're in like industrial design and you're putting in call outs on your sketches. And this is like really easy way to make like beautiful arrows without hand drawing them in. But I'm not using, you can definitely see how it influences your design. You're totally welcome to use them. I do not want them in my design. And then the last 2 things I want to show you are the profile, and I think it's called the brush definition, sorry. So the profile is cool because this will influence how the stroke is generated. And right now it's on uniform, completely even from top to bottom, or however, from start to finish. The stroke is even throughout, almost like it was, you know, sort of drawn by like a plotter or something. But if we try some of these other profiles where it starts skinny, gets wider, ends skinny, you see that where I start is skinny, and as I move throughout the path it gets wider, and then when I end it's skinny. This adds a lot of cool variation, and just like, okay, I'm not selected again, a lot of visual interest, and sort of like gives it back of like a handmade feeling. It doesn't feel so sterile. I mean, not to say, keep losing my selection, not to say that uniform is bad, but it depends on like the aesthetic you're going for. So let's turn this back to uniform, and let's look up in the control panel. Make sure you have your path selected. Let's look up in the control panel, and you can see we can do all the same things we can do between properties and the stroke window or stroke panel. So up in this control area, obviously I can adjust my stroke weight, adjust the profile, but the brush definition is what is really cool. So if I maybe make it a charcoal, so it looks kind of like a sketch, or like a paintbrush. Let's zoom out just a bit. Or what else do we have? Here's a kind of a fun one, a border, but we can also use like angled brushes. Boom, boom. Okay. Okay, so now that we know how to adjust and add variation to our paths, let's give it a little bit of interest. Maybe we'll do a dashed line. Oh, I hate it. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is talk about color swatches. So let's open up a window, swatches. And this will show you all like the Adobe preloaded stuff, sort of like basic color palettes and some gradients at the end. And I have a couple of my own custom swatches, but creating swatches will help you create uniformity throughout your work. So I would create a new swatch. Let's do a new color. Ooh. Let's create a new color group. Why can I not? Wait. There we go. I had something selected, that's why. So let's call this Doodle swatch. Okay. And let's go to, we want to add a new swatch. I need color open. And I want to make sure color is in CMYK because we are in a CMYK color mode document. I'm just going to grab, let's do, oop, my bad. Okay, let me clean this up really quick. Okay, we're gonna live like this. Let's grab this purple, new swatch. Okay. And I want him in my new folder I made. Let's go maybe do like a lighter version. New swatch, and we'll do is that different? I don't know. Yeah, they're different. Okay, so I got 3 swatches, 3 colors right here in my color group that I'm going to use for this project, or just this demo, I should say. And I'm going to, let's get rid of this guy. Let's actually recolor him. And I'm going to make, holding Option or Alt, make a copy. Put it below. Oops. I don't want to fill. So I'm going to place them right below there. Keep upping that stroke weight, and then boom. All right. And now do I want a dash line? I don't know. Actually, that's kind of interesting. So all I did was just make a copy of that path and put it below my original. So it was kind of like a, you know, a big brush marker behind and then a detailed marker on top. I think the last thing I'm gonna do is just give this a background color, putting my rectangle at the very bottom, and let's fill it. Let's go with that unused middle swatch. All right. So that is it. We know how to pick colors. Let me go back to CMYK. We know how to create swatches. We know how to use the pen tool, the curvature tool, add anchor point, delete anchor point tool, direct selection tool. And also we know how to set up our Illustrator document to create a beautiful 8 artboard layout in the correct dimensions. So, I don't know what that is, but the basics are done. That should cover everything. I hope that covers everything that we need to know for this project, but either way, all right, that's about it.